where we get into trouble is what are the metrics for determining who gets an unfair advantage, quote unquote. And I would argue that when you are, say, okay, people of color have taken a lot of shit, fine, they get advantage. Well, what about women, right? 73 cents on the dollar, okay, they deserve advantage. Gay people, the Japanese, we intern them. And unfortunately, where we ended up was with 76% of the people applying to college are, quote unquote, deserving an advantage. But when you're trying to advantage 76% of the population, you're not advantaging them. You're disadvantaging and discriminating against the 24%. Mm-hmm, and that's where we are. So I think it's a moment to be thoughtful about what we mean by affirmative action and just have something that foots to the reality. And the reality is, and this is a sign of progress in America today, and it hasn't always been this way, but today you'd rather be born gay or non-white than poor. So my viewpoint is let's focus all this wonderful intentionality around helping people that need it on the poor and have it have nothing to do with physically measurable attributes. I think that era has passed.
Is it fair to describe you as a classical liberal? When we've played clips of yours, I always sense that that's probably how you would define yourself politically, but I don't want to speak for you.
I call myself a raging moderate. I'm center left. I think Israel has probably pulled me a little bit center right, but I think I represent maybe even the majority of people out there. And that is on certain issues, I lean left, and on certain issues, I lean right. But I try to be a critical thinker and go issue by issue. It's difficult because the one thing everyone's agreed on is that you can hate moderates. So the right calls me a libtard, and that's fine. They just write me off. The left is even worse, though. The left acts as if I've betrayed them. They'll say stuff like, we thought we could trust you. They seem sort of emotionally hurt that I've betrayed them. There really isn't room online for the middle. And I worry that because we're all human and we don't want to be shamed, that was how you died. You got shamed or expunged from the community or the tribe, that we all start barking up the same tree. And when you bark up the same tree, you become stupid. So I purposely go on Fox and conservative radio because I find, generally speaking, as you get to know people, you find that you have more in common than you think. And I go on a lot of left stuff. But anyway, center left, kind of going center right just because of Israel.
Right. I completely hear you. I have no doubt that many of my audience kind of feel the same way. And that sort of tracks my own political evolution. I'm wondering, though, so are you still getting invites for those lefty things? I mean, I saw you on Bill Maher. I think he sort of counts in the rough ballpark that we're talking about. But I've found it's just increasingly difficult to find people on the left that are willing to have those conversations where I agree. People on the right, they'll disagree with you and then they'll want to have dinner with you.
Yeah, I get called on because I think I get engagement. I think I have a good twist or turn of phrase, and I'm not afraid to say things that are counterculture. So the bottom line is they'll have anyone on that can help them sell more restless leg syndrome treatments or opioid-induced constipation medication. So these are businesses, right? But I haven't found either side has tried to silence me or doesn't want me on. People, generally speaking, just want smart, thoughtful, entertaining people on.
Let's back up for a second. For people that don't know you or have only seen a clip or two of yours on the show, can you just kind of give a little bit of a background that kind of led you to being the voice that you are these days?
Sure. A child of a single immigrant mother that lived and died as secretary. I consider myself a product of big government. The generosity and vision of California taxpayers and the Regency University of California gave me accessible and affordable education. When I applied to UCLA, it was 76% admissions rate. It's going to be 9% this year. I started out in business, started a bunch of internet companies, got some wins, some fails, but one of the great things about America is you can recover after some fails. I got a couple wins. That's all I needed. And at a young age was cursed with this wonderful opportunity or decision to what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I decided I wanted to teach. I joined the faculty of NYU 22 years ago. I've taught 5,500 students, started writing books, discovered podcasting like you. And now I'm, basically a storyteller for a living, doing podcasts, speaking, newsletters, and writing.
How much have the universities, NYU specifically, shifted since in those 22 years?
There was definitely a moment about 10 years ago. I remember getting an email from my department chair saying that microaggressions would not be tolerated. It went on to describe all the different things that counted as a microaggression. And I remember thinking, wow, we have really lost the script here, that to think that this is supposed to be a place of free thought where the reason a university was placed outside of the city center of Athens is you were supposed to be free to say the earth might be round, not flat, and not worried about being burnt to the stake. That our job is to be provocative. And we started barking up the same tree, and there became this unfortunate oppressor-oppressed mentality, whether it's you had to be one or the other. And I think, unfortunately, it created an orthodoxy that's created this kind of victimization culture amongst some of our best and brightest young minds, where they feel like they're one or the other. And I think as a result, they feel a loss of agency. And unfortunately, I think a lot of these initially well-intentioned, thoughtful DEI movements and affirmative action, I'm a beneficiary of affirmative action. I got Pell Grants because my mom didn't make any money. I think that it started off with the right intentions and it just went too far and unfortunately became what I would describe as just blatantly bigoted. The example I use is that, look, 60 years ago, there were only 12 Black people at Princeton, Yale, and Harvard. It made sense to have race-based affirmative action, or at least I thought it made sense back then. Now, 51% of Harvard's freshman class is non-white. But the issue is 70% of those kids have parents from dual-income homes that are upper income. So all we've done is reshuffled the elites under the auspices of trying to grab the moral high ground. And if you really wanted to help people, and I generally believe that most Republicans and Democrats believe that there are some people are born with wind in their face through no fault of their own and deserve a hand up. Where we get into trouble is what are the metrics for determining who gets an unfair advantage, quote unquote. And I would argue that when you say, okay, people of color have taken a lot of shit, fine, they get advantage. Well, what about women, right? 73 cents on the dollar, okay, they deserve advantage. Gay people, the Japanese, we intern them. And unfortunately, where we ended up was with 76% of the people applying to college are, quote unquote, deserving an advantage. But when you're trying to advantage 76% of the population, you're not advantaging them. You're disadvantaging and discriminating against the 24%. And that's where we are. So I think it's a moment to be thoughtful about what we mean by affirmative action and just have something that foots to the reality. And the reality is, and this is a sign of progress in America today, and it hasn't always been this way, but today you'd rather be born gay or non-white than poor. So my viewpoint is let's focus all this wonderful intentionality around helping people that need it on the poor and have nothing to do with physically measurable attributes. I think that era has passed.
So in essence, and I think you've described it this way, you would say it's affirmative action based on income rather than race. What would you say to somebody, and I more, I think, fall into this camp, which is that all we can do is just get out of the way. That's all the system can do at this point. It's so corrupt. These institutions are so out of whack. They've now discriminated against Asians, say at Harvard for so long, that all we can do is just get the government and the institutions out of the way. And then you got a chance and maybe it's going to work and maybe it isn't.
I think that's cynical. And I think I'm proof that it can work. I got Pell Grants. I wouldn't have been able to go to UCLA.
Except that was probably 40 years ago or something.
Right, but I don't see why we couldn't return to that. I don't think just throwing up your arms and giving up and saying, look, if you're born to a drug addicted single mother, sorry, boss, you're just shit out of luck. Try and figure out a way, and we'll always publicize the rare examples of kids who manage to overcome this. But I think most people, including Republicans, would say if a kid comes from a low income household, we're going to try and find a way to maybe get him or her a hand up. That's why I'm here with you today, Dave. And this is a flex, but it's a flex. Last year, I paid $14 million in taxes, so it's worked out for all of us. And to think that we can't make those sort of forward-leaning investments. Look, America isn't about identifying
For the record, I don't think it's that we can't do it. My personal position would be that you would more so leave it up to charity and people individually deciding what to do. That's kind of at a national
Get the government
level.
out of it.
Yeah, that basically at a national level. Maybe you could do it more at a state level, but that the national machinery is just so broken or corroded that really is the issue. It's not that I don't want to help people and I do things privately.
Well, I think Pell Grants on the whole have been good. I think you could argue the student loans has been mixed. It's gotten but there's some quick fixes here. Put my university on the hook for 30% of bad student loan debt, and they'll stop giving kids $200,000 to become history majors / bartenders. There's some fixes here. And generally speaking, if you just leave it to private industry and donations, then basically it's rich people who decide who get advantage, not the government. And I do think the government can do stuff on a systemic, broad level that it's pretty striking and can help. So I haven't given up yet on the notion that federal government can step in and help underprivileged kids.
If you're looking for smarter conversations about academia, check out our academia playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.